Hello, welcome to End-to-End Solution Architect session. In this session, I will be talking about how to set up Terraform state management with AWS S3 backend. So before I jump into actual provisioning this S3 bucket for Terraform state management, let me tell you the concept of state management in Terraform first. So basically the question is, why do we need to manage Terraform state? And what is Terraform state? Terraform state is nothing but, you can think of a memory in Terraform which stores what has been provisioned in your infrastructure and how this Terraform state look like. Since it is an advanced session in Terraform, I assume that you have the basic understanding of Terraform and Terraform projects. So you must be knowing that in a Terraform project, you have already terraform.tf states, terraform.tfstate.backup, these two files you see. And these two files are responsible for storing what has been provisioned or what is the state of Terraform. Terraform TF state backup is nothing but just the backup of this Terraform state, but the main file is terraform.tf state. So overall, you can consider Terraform state is nothing but a small memory of Terraform which knows what is the current state and what is the desired state. It means what has been provisioned and what are the change you are going to make. It knows about that. So that's the purpose of Terraform state. Now let's move to the next part of it, where we will see that what are the prerequisite to create the state management when we will go to, when we will jump into the practical part of it. So I assume that you have AWS CLI configured and Terraform installed in your system. But again, before jumping into the practical, let me take you to another topic, where how do we actually manage Terraform state. Consider that you are the developer who is working on Terraform project, and you are the single developer in your team who is working the Terraform project. You have all Terraform codes in your local system, and you are provisioning your infrastructure in any of the cloud providers. When you initialize Terraform, it creates the Terraform state files in your local system. But what if you change your system? Then you don't have your Terraform state, and you have your project code from Git repository, but you don't have the Terraform state. And that's the reason we create a Terraform backend. And in this case, we will be creating the Terraform backend with AWS S3 service. So when you are keeping your Terraform state files in AWS S3 bucket, it doesn't matter that which system you are working on. You can pull your code from Git repository and just connect to the backend. And when you run your Terraform, it will know what is the current state and what is the desired state. Now the same way, when you work with your team, where multiple developers who are working on the same project of Terraform you are working, then they are also using the same AWS S3 backend for Terraform state files management. So here is the benefit of managing Terraform state files in AWS S3 bucket. Now let me show you how we can actually achieve it. I am logged into my AWS management console, but at this moment I am not creating the S3 bucket manually over here. I will write a Terraform code and it will provision the S3 bucket and the DynamoDB required for this state management in AWS. Here I have created a skeleton of the project. My project name is my project, and you can see there are few Terraform files I have drafted over here. It is based on the standard of Terraform project structure I follow. If you check my other session on Terraform best practices, I have explained that the best practices for Terraform as well as the project structure. Okay, so here is the version file, and we know that in Terraform version file, when you are working, we need to have the version, and I'm just quickly copying and pasting the code over here, and simply you can see that we have our Terraform version required, which is 116, or current version is going on, which is 118 as per the Terraform version installed in your system where you will be executing this code. So make sure you have this. For your information, I will be sharing this whole Terraform code or the project code in my Git repository, so you do not need to worry about that. Just check in the video description. Okay, now we have the required providers. Currently we are using AWS because we will be using AWS S3 service. Okay, and the provider block we have, that is for profile is default and region is variable region. I am coming to this variable part. Before that, when you have configured your AWS CLI, then you have configured your profile. You have set your profile also. So by default it is a default profile. If you have particular profile, then make sure you update it over here. Okay, now let's go to the main part where we need to write the code for provisioning the S3 bucket. And I am not explaining this code how it works because of this advanced session, but in another session where I explained each and every steps, that how to write resources, how to write modules, there I have explained that how to write these main files. But here I am just directly copying the code because the main aim of this session is to educate you with how you can create the Terraform state management with AWS S3 backend. Okay, so here I am using my custom AWS S3 module. Okay, and I have my DynamoDB as well. Okay, for your information, that when we are using that AWS S3 for the state management, for the lock management we need AWS DynamoDB as well. So provisioning the DynamoDB is for the Terraform lock management, because you have seen another file which is called terraform.lock.acl. That locking mechanism is also managed remotely, means in AWS, by DynamoDB. Okay, so our main is done. Let's go to variable, and I am just copying only few variables which I have used over here. It is project created by as per the best practice, region, a bucket name, bucket versioning, lifecycle rules. Although these are false at this point, I am not changing it. So let me copy the app.tfr, which I use at app.tfr. You know that for Terraform files you can give any name to it, but in my case I keep it structured, which talks about all the variable I have used. My project name, suppose it is E2A set tutorials, region I am using US East 1. So let's check this bucket names. Okay, so I am using only this bucket, so let me only a single bucket. So I am not using a list of buckets, so that's why I'm just changing it. Suppose it is E2E SA test states. Bucket versioning is enabled. Lifecycle rule is false. DB name, again I'm changing it to test. Okay, billing mode is pay per request. Make sure you have these three values identical as it is showing over here. So your hash key must be lock ID, and where L is in cap, I is in cap, D is in cap. It is not I is in cap, D is in small. It is not like that. Exactly identical. And your attribute name is lock ID again. Your attribute type is S. Okay. So we have our main file written where we are provisioning one S3 bucket and one DynamoDB table, and we have our version configured, we have our variables over here, and we have our app.tfr over here. Okay, so this is now where we are ready with the code. Now what is the first thing? So the first thing is we have to execute Terraform Init. Now run Terraform Init to initialize this project, and you see that in our my project folder currently we have these Terraform files only. I request you to give your attention that how many files we have in my project. We have currently 1 2 3 4 5 files. Okay, now let's try the Terraform Init, enter, and it is initializing, and Terraform has been successfully initialized. Now again I request you to attention in this my project folder. You see that we had before 5 files. Now we have terraform.lock.hcl. This is a file, and if I click over here you see this hash. Okay, and there is one small directory has been created which contains modules and the providers. Okay, because when you do that Terraform init, it pulls the providers, required providers, which you have configured in the version.tf file. Okay, and you have your module, what are the modules you are using. So here we are using few custom modules from the local, that's why it has mentioned over here. So basically our Terraform has been initialized. Now it is the time for executing the plan. Now when we running the plan, I am not simply running the Terraform plan, because the code I have drafted for this Terraform project, actually I am passing a app.tf var, because all my variable values are in app.tf vars. It is again as per the best practice of Terraform. I am not going in detail, but I am just telling you that I am passing a app.tf var for all the variable values, and also passing a variable which is called created by. Okay, so I am just clicking on enter. Let's see how it goes, and you see that when it is being executed, we have another file called terraform.tfstate.lock.info. okay, and the Terraform plan says that there are 7 resources going to be provisioned, and this is the plan, and you know about that what is Terraform plan, so I am not going into that. Now this is the time that we create this Terraform apply. So let's run this. And when we create this Terraform apply, you see that we have got this terraform.tf state now. Okay, so let's do this apply first. It is creating the S3 bucket as well as the DynamoDB. Now let's go to our AWS portal and see. Let's go to S3, and here is our E2ESA test states which has been created. The S3 bucket has been created. If we go inside this S3 bucket, you will find that it is completely a empty bucket. Now go to the properties, and you know that we did the versioning enabled. Just to check that whether it is a versioning enabled, yes, it is versioning enabled. tags we created over here. It has created all these tags, and the encryption is also enabled. Check the permission because it should be a private bucket. So block all public access. This is green. So we are good. And you know that we have also created DynamoDB. So let's check the DynamoDB. Go to tables. Here is our DynamoDB tables created. You see that E2ESA test logs, and we have the partition key as lock IDs, and it is also empty currently. Okay, so we have just provisioned this S3 bucket and DynamoDB at this time. Now this is the infrastructure, you can say, for state management. Now when you are actually writing a project, then how can you use this backend as Terraform state management? Okay, so let me show you that. Now suppose we have another project called test. Okay, and I'm writing from the scratch over here that you are just trying to provision anything. Suppose a separate S3 bucket only, just for the test. Okay, so it is main.tf again. Okay, the version.tf. This is as per the best practice I follow, but you know that the file name doesn't matter and you can put everything in a single file as well. Okay, so variables.tf f.tf vars, and that's it. At this point I don't need the output because I am not putting anything in the output. Okay, now the first thing is that this is the test project, and I want, when I'm creating this project, I want to include the AWS S3 state management, means Terraform state files management in AWS S3. So how can I do that? That is the main question over here. So I have to configure my Terraform this project version.tf like this. So I'm pasting the code over here. Again, I'll be sharing this whole code with you. Okay, so this is the part. Let me update it first and then I can explain to you. Yes, this is the part where earlier you had only this Terraform required providers and this Terraform provider block. Now you see that I have added one backend S3 because this is the backend which Terraform will be using to store its Terraform state files and the log files as well. Okay, so here is the bucket name, which is a state management bucket, E2ES3 test state. And remember that before using this backend, you must have that backend already provisioned. So that's the reason I created this S3 bucket and DynamoDB bucket at first point, and then for my project I am going to use it. Okay, so here I have this bucket name, I have this key. Okay, key I have mentioned it as state/terraform.tf state. Okay, you can keep it the state as ABC or whatever, but as a practice I put it state, and I will show you why it is required. Okay, now the region is US East 1. DynamoDB table for the logs management I have created, it is test.logs. Encryption is true. Profile, again it is using the default profile as it is. Okay, so my version file is done. Okay, now let's do one thing. Just in our main file, what we could do, that let's create another simple S3 bucket. You can create VPC, any AWS resource, that doesn't matter, it is for the test only. So I am just creating a S3 bucket over here, And if you think why I am using this local tags, because I follow a practice and I always recommend to follow this practice, that when you are creating any AWS resource or any cloud resource, you should add the tags. It helps that for the architects or someone is pulling the resource report, it helps that, and it is a very good practice that you add these tags with every resource you created. Okay, so here it is nothing but that I am just using this S3 bucket as a test for this Terraform backend. Now in this case, write some variables over here, and this, it will be the same variables we had it before. So I am just copying it over here, and we have the app.tf.var. App.tf.var will be like nothing but this we have already used. This one I'm just changing this. Again, it is the list. We don't need that list because we are creating one single S3 only. So it is new test. I can give it just new test. Okay, now this is the time that we initialize this project, and I want you to give your attention that number of files our test project has. It is app.tf words, main.tf, variables.tf, and version.tf. There are 4 files over here only. Okay, so let me do this initialize over here, and see what happens. You see that something is saying successfully configured the backend S3. Terraform will automatically use this backend unless the backend configuration changes. So it has picked up the backend configuration from the S3, and it will not create the Terraform states file in local. Okay, so Terraform has been initialized. So our next task is run the Terraform plan. I am directly running the Terraform apply because I know that it is a very small code and it is going to run. So, and when you run apply, it will show you the whole plan beforehand. Okay, so I'm again passing this app.tf words and running apply. And everything is good. It is going to plan 6 resources. That's perfect. Yes. And it has created. Okay, now you see that we don't have that Terraform tf state files over here. I want you to give attention in this test project directory that we have these tf files which we created. We have the .terraform where it has pulled the providers. We have this lock over here, but it doesn't have the Terraform state files over here which we had it before. Okay, so it must have stored in our Terraform the DynamoDB and the S3 bucket we have created, right? So give a refresh over here. Let's see, it is our DynamoDB. Let's click here. Okay, let's explore the items. This is our DynamoDB, and we see that one lock ID has been created. So this is the lock ID has been created, and now let's go to our S3 bucket, and here we have our S3 bucket. This is our S3 bucket which we created for backend configuration. So let's check that backend configuration first. We have anything in this S3 bucket or not, because we are supposed to get the tf state files over here. And yes, we have something. You see that we have the state, that folder. It is reason uh, because we created this tf. Let me take you to this backend configuration where we created in our version.tf. We configured that we want to push our key, means terraform.tf state, under this state folder. Okay, so let's go inside the state, and we see that we have this terraform state, and it has just stored it over here. So it is not storing in your local, but it is storing in the AWS S3 bucket here. And here is the new S3 bucket which we just created for our testing, that whether this S3 has been created or not. Definitely this S3 bucket has been created, and this is the project which has used AWS S3 as backend for Terraform state management. So I hope you understood that what is the purpose for Terraform state management and how you can create the Terraform backend with AWS S3. Now let me show you one more thing which is very important. As per the best practice, I always suggest everyone to go for it. Okay, so we have planned or applied this test S3 bucket, right? So I am just destroying it. Yes. Well, it has destroyed, just giving a refresh, and we have only the backend. We don't have that text, this one. Let me go back again and clear this console. Well, now what I want to do, you must be knowing about Terraform Workspace, right? So I'm not going in detail and explaining that what is Terraform Workspace. It must be knowing that. Now let's see what is the workspace it is pointing to. So Terraform Workspace show, and it is default because it has only one workspace and we didn't create any workspace. So what I suggest that you create one workspace, and that is Terraform Workspace new. And what I say that, okay, it is a S3 project and it is a dev environment. This is my strategy or the way I structure. You can put any name of your workspace, but the benefit of using this workspace you will just know after few minutes. So I create this workspace as S3 dev new, and now it is done. New workspace has been created. Now let's see which workspace it is pointing to. It must be pointing to this new one. So show, we have this S3 dev. Now when I will run this apply, it will consider this workspace, S3 dev workspace. Let's apply, because I wanted to show you the behavior of the Terraform state management when you are using Terraform Workspace. Now it has created. Let's go to this Terraform backend S3. So click on this backend. Just give a refresh in this Terraform backend files. Now you see that you have something called env, environments. It is not only the state, because this state actually you mentioned it in your configuration file, means your versions.tf. Now when you are using Terraform Workspace, it has created one directory first, which is the parent directory env, and inside this env, if you go, you have your S3 dev. So env is basically, it stores the number of workspaces. Now the workspace we have created, it calls S3 dev, and inside the workspace when you go, you get your configured that directory state as directory, and inside that you get your terraform.tf state. So the benefit of using Terraform Workspace in this situation is that you do not need to create multiple S3 backend, Terraform backend for your every project. Definitely, if it is your production environment, I recommend you to keep your separate S3 buckets for separate projects. But when it is a non-production environment, you do not need to create a number of your S3 bucket in AWS for your Terraform backend. Okay, so you can use only one Terraform backend, and just by playing with this workspace, you can create you can manage the different state files for different workspace separately in the same S3 backend over here. So that is the purpose I wanted you to understand, that how you can create or use Terraform Workspace and play with it to manage multiple workspace with a single AWS S3 backend. Thank you for your time. I hope you have understood what is the purpose for Terraform state management and how you can use the state management with AWS S3 as Terraform backend. If you have any queries, please feel free to drop a note at info@e2esolutionarchitect.com or write your comment in this video